Welcome to today's episode. We're stepping into a breathtaking farm that easily blends elegance, nature, and romance to create a perfect setting for your dream wedding. I'm sitting down with Jerry Houck, the venue owner and manager of Historic Arcadia Farm, located just 45 minutes from the Bluegrass Airport in Stanford, Kentucky. The property is home to the Shelby Manor, a stunning historic mansion, expansive grounds, and a gorgeous reception pavilion. Everything you need for an unforgettable wedding day. Arcadia Farm offers couples a one of a kind experience, not only for those local to Kentucky, but also for destination couples looking for something that is truly special. In today's conversation, Jerry will share what makes the venue so unique and how he combines his extensive background in catering with the venue's offerings to ensure that your wedding planning is seamless, and why Arcadia Farm could be the perfect fit for your big day. You're listening to The Wedding Whisperer with Sarah Burton of Simply Love Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. So, Jerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background in the wedding and event industry before we jump into the background on the property.
Absolutely. So I have been in the wedding business for more than 30 years now. Here in this local area, I've owned restaurants and catering companies, and we've been on the other side of the wedding business for those 30 years. So we've been catering and wedding planning and doing florals and stuff for about 30 years now before we bought the property a couple of years ago.
How did you get into the catering world?
Well, it's a very interesting story. I started my first business when I was in my early 20s and just decided kind of on a whim that I wanted to have a restaurant. You know, it's kind of like one of those things that it's everybody, if you're in the foodie type atmosphere, it's everybody's big dream. I want to own a restaurant or I want to have a bar. So in my 20s, I did exactly that. I decided that we would open a little small tea room in Danville, and it grew. And with that, we started doing events because it seemed like an obvious thing for us. And we've been doing like all of the off-campus catering for Center College for many, many years and doing a lot of work with them. But I love doing parties. I love hosting parties, love throwing parties. So the wedding side of it just became natural. And for us, with the catering part, we were a full service catering company. So not only did we do the food, but we also helped with the setup and the decor. And so we've kind of always dabbled in other parts than just food. Now, I love food and I love being able to prepare and do fun things. And we're probably in this area, we're probably one of the last holdouts of those people that just like to do the fancy stuff. So I love throwing dinner parties with the china and the crystal and the silver and the silverware and all of that good stuff. And it just morphed into doing the more elegant style events, which then led into the weddings. And the unique part for us is we do come in and do a lot more than just food. Food can sometimes be pedestrian when you're talking weddings, probably more because of budgets. And so it's all the added extras that we put in the mix with helping them figure out what is a good menu and how do we fit into the budget and then what else can we offer? So we have the china, we have all the chafing dishes, we have all the linens, and so it just kind of evolved from there. So it was through the catering that we were first introduced to Arcadia. Now I've lived in this area my entire life. So over 50 years, I have driven in front of those gates a million times and I never knew what was here. And the French family that owned the property before us had asked me to come out and do an event for them. And in the process of doing that event, became really good friends with them. And they had this huge house here that they really didn't do a whole lot with because they were horse trainers. And so their interest was more on the farm. So they had asked me if it seemed feasible to do weddings here because everybody was doing barn weddings, and that was the big craze back in 2017, 16. Everybody wanted to get married in an old barn. Um, Now, thankfully, we've kind of evolved from that just a little bit, but yes, as a catering company, I can come in and can help you plan and do all of this. And so the first year we did it in tents here around the house, and we just kind of morphed from there. And as they saw that it was being profitable, we ended up helping them design and build the pavilion that we've got. So we've got an octagon shaped pavilion where we do the weddings now. And it just kind of morphed into us coming out and being their exclusive caterer, and we did all of that work with them. And then when it was time for them to move on and sell the property, it was just kind of a natural progression for us to then step in and purchase this part of the property to be able to really open it up and make it even more of a spectacular venue.
One of the things I really love about my job is getting to see venues and vendors really hone in on their craft and bring things to life, and just all of the ideas that are swirling in their head, just literally bring them to life. I got to see the property before the pavilion was built, before the restrooms were built, before it had all of these renovations, and it's amazing to see how far, Jerry, that you have brought the property. And if you are listening to this and you're like, "This property kinda sounds pretty cool. I think, maybe you should consider it for my wedding, but does it have AC and heat?" Yes, yes, it does, because I know that is a very important question, especially in Kentucky. And before we dive into more about the pavilion, the barn on the property, and just the grounds in general, I do want to talk about the manor. What year was it originally built in?
So this house, they started building it in 1826, and it is a very historic property. And it's very very much a quintessential piece to the history of Kentucky. So this was Governor Shelby, who was the first and fifth governor of Kentucky. He came here with a 25,000 acre land grant from President George Washington after the Revolutionary War. He came here with Daniel Boone to map out what would be the state of Kentucky. This was part of Virginia at that point. And so, with this 25,000 acre land grant, he gifted each of his children 1,000 acres in a trust. And so, this particular house was a gift to his youngest son, Isaac Shelby Jr. It took 10 years to build the house. It's completely built of brick. So, it'll be here for a long, long time. And of all of the children's homes, it's the biggest. So we figured Isaac Shelby Jr. might have been a little spoiled because he's next door to mom and dad, and he's got the biggest house. So we still have 700 acres of that original 1,000 that was gifted to Isaac Shelby Jr. Now, Isaac Shelby himself was the first and fifth governor of Kentucky, so he helped write the Constitution for the Commonwealth. And they asked him if he would be interested in running for the first governor of Kentucky, and he said sure, and of course he won. Everybody loved Isaac Shelby. All around every state, you can find a Shelby County, Shelby City, Shelbyville, something, and it's all from Governor Shelby.
I did not know any of that history.
Yeah, it's amazing the just the history of the farm itself. But I mean, if you think about it, he came here with 25,000 acres. Boyle County is a little over 30,000 acres, the entire county. So he had a pretty good swath of land here, and we're very, very fortunate that we still have the 700. And he called this his Arcadia. So Arcadia is a Greek word that means pastoral or peaceful or a place to go find rest. And so through all of his time in the military, he would come back here, and this would be where he would come to rest.
I love that. So that walks me into the next thing. Is one of the best parts about the property is that the house, you can actually stay here with your bridal party on the wedding weekend.
Yes. So our packages typically are a 3-day package. So it starts Friday at 3 and goes Sunday at noon, and you get the manor with your package. So there's 5 bedrooms on the second floor and then the loft on the top floor. So we can sleep 22 people in the house. And so they get the house for the weekend to do hair and makeup, to do their brunches, to whatever it is that they want to do. We include the rehearsal time and the rehearsal dinner space in your package, so there's not an extra fee for all of that. So what we want is we want people to just come on Friday, unload your stuff, and make yourself at home. We want you to treat it like home. We want you to feel like you're at home and bring your friends and family on the next day and then celebrate. But yes, you get everything that's within the black plank fence around the house. You get that for the weekend.
No, I will say I tend to be a little bougie sometimes. I try not to be, but it just happens. Um, for someone that lives for a bride that might be listening and is like, this house was built in the 1800s. Like, is it updated? Is it modern? Is it renovated? I know that there have been a ton of renovations here over the years. But for those listening that have never seen it before, walk me through like the updates that you've even done since you moved in.
So yes, we do have all of the luxuries. So the house was completely restored in the 80s. There was a $3.5 million restoration that was done on the house in the 80s. So we have heat, we have air conditioning, we have a modern kitchen with all of the stuff. We've got the Keurig, so we're right up there. So we do need coffee, and we've got it. Each of the bedrooms each have an ensuite. So we went in the 80s from 1 bathroom in the house. Now we have 8. So there's everything that you can possibly imagine with the Wi-Fi. I mean, it is like being in a modern home, but you get this feel of being back in history.
One of the things that I love most about the property is you do get it for the full weekend. And I think that for a long time, venues started that way and then they went to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday rental. And I do think that makes it difficult for couples. And especially when you have friends and family coming from out of town and you just want to be together. And one of the best things about being here is that everyone can be together and you do have the house and you said it can hold 22 people.
Yes.
And then you also have a couple other smaller parts on the property that are great for like the groomsmen, for example.
Right. So we are unique in that way, and it is kind of like being in a destination. Property wide, we can sleep about 50 people. So the manor is kind of the heart of the farm. But because it was a working horse farm, we also have tenant houses, and we have training apartments and everything that they would have needed to run the horse farm. What we've done with those tenant houses is we've gone in and we've restored all of them and updated all of them with heating and air conditioning and nice bathrooms and big fluffy beds. So there are 6 houses on the property altogether, and including the manor. 4 of these are available for people to rent for the weekend. So we have the main house. Like I said, there's 5 bedrooms on the second floor, 1 on the top floor. For the guys, we have the bunkhouse, and the bunkhouse is a 3-bedroom apartment that's over top of one of the barns. So the main part of the barn is where the horses stay with the stalls. And then upstairs, there's a full 3-bedroom apartment that has 6 twin beds in it, a full bath, full kitchen, living room, the whole 9 yards there. And then we have 2 other cottages that are 2-bedroom cottages with full baths in them. And all of those are available with and as an add-on with your package.
You mentioned you had passed by the property a million times, but you never knew what was back here. For those listening that are not familiar with the farm and the property yet, let's share with them what it's like to turn from the main road onto the property once you come through the gates.
So when you come through those front gates, it's big, stately. It gives you that quintessential Southern feel. The main house is a mile from the front gate. So you come up the front gate, and it's the big, giant oak trees that line the driveway. But as you're coming up the drive, on your right is the first big barn, and we've transformed that into a little bit more of a rustic wedding space that is available. It's a 26 stall barn, an old, if you wanted kind of that equestrian look. And then on the left hand side is the first barn, and that's where the bunkhouse is. So that's about a quarter of a mile up the road, up the driveway. And then next to the bunkhouse are the 3 cottages. We actually live in one of them, so I live here on the property. I'm always close if somebody needs. And then the other 2 cottages. And then as you pass those, as you break out of the tree-lined driveway, then all of a sudden you look up and there's this majestic mansion that sits with the big 4 white columns out front and with a circle drive that goes all the way around.
Are most of the wedding ceremonies in front of the mansion?
Yes. Because of the way that we're positioned, the sunset is on the front of the house. So in the afternoon, the sun is right there directly on the front of the house. Typically, what our brides do will line up in the front hall, and our front hall is massive. And we open the double doors out onto the front porch, and the bridal party all walks out and then walks out into the lawn and gets married on the front lawn, facing away from the house.
And then the pavilion is
literally 50 feet away.
Yeah.
Right next to the house, we have an octagon-shaped white pavilion, and the design of that was inspired by Floral Hall in Lexington. So the family that lived here were horse people, and they were kind of instrumental in helping get the Red Mile back up to where it is today. And when they asked me to design the pavilion, I just thought that it seemed special to make it an octagon-shaped building after kind of Floral Hall. Now, it's not quite as big as Floral Hall, but it still has that kind of same feel.
And then do most of the couples do like a cocktail hour between the ceremony and the reception spaces?
You can. Because our package includes everything that's around the house, we can tailor make that. So if they wanted to do cocktail hour out under the trees between the house and the pavilion, when you could do that. There's a meadow area beside the pavilion that you could do cocktail hour out there if you wanted to. And there are times too when the bridal party wants to get married out in the meadow without the house in the background. It's just a little different look. But there's so many different spaces that you can do your ceremony here. And we do all the setup, so they don't have to worry about any of that.
And that's one of the good things about you being like privately owned. It's not a corporation, so there aren't rules about where you have to have everything. Every couple that comes out here, they have a different vision for it. And it's kind of like, okay, you think that looks good? Great, we'll make that happen.
Yep. Well, and the fun part is, with most venues, you want repeat customers, and obviously a wedding is a one-time thing for most people, but there's a big bridal party. And so the girls that are in the bridal party, they're here for the weekend. They fall in love with Arcadia. The great part is that if they decide they want to get married out here, we can create an entirely different look. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter. Not everybody has to get married on the front lawn. Not everybody has to have their cocktail hour in the pavilion. It doesn't have to be set up the same way. We can make it look as elegant or as casual as they possibly want.
And going back to me being a little bougie sometimes, in other instances, I have been to weddings and events at similar properties, and they have brought in like restroom trailers. However, when you built the pavilion, you also built restrooms on the property.
Yes. So we have a full bathhouse that has men's and women's restroom. It's about 50 feet away from the pavilion. So no outhouses here on
No
the
porta
farm.
potties.
No.
And I get, why people have to have that, and I know how expensive bathrooms are, and especially if you're on a private farm or something, but when I'm going to weddings, I'm like, God, I hope there's a bathroom there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that was kind of a throwback from those days of when I first started doing the barn weddings. I mean, these were back in the days when they were old tobacco barns, and I climbed in the top of these barns and hung Christmas lights and had, dirt from head to toe, and then we had the green porta-john out around the corner. So when we did this, we wanted to get away from kind of that feel. So our pavilion is all white on the inside and the outside. Some people call it a barn, And a lot of people will look at it and think that it's historic, that it's been here forever, but it was built in 2017, so it's relatively new. And then we did add the heating and air conditioning a couple of years ago. There's all those kind of luxury things, and then having the restrooms right there, it just makes it so much easier, I think.
I think too, like whenever a couple comes to me and they mention that they like the idea of a barn, we have so many different options for a barn now. And everybody, when they see a barn, they picture something different. So there are a lot of times where I have to kind of stop myself in saying it's a barn and be like, okay, it's a pavilion. It's all of the things. And
Right.
you can also make it be what you want it to be. It's
Absolutely.
new enough, it's sophisticated enough that, it it's not a barn at the same time.
Right.
And talking about being on a farm and a property, one of the things that I do want to talk about is parking. You are far enough away from the road, the main road, that nobody's going to be crossing a main road. You don't have to worry about that. You have plenty of land here for people to park. There's not a ton of walking, for grandma. It's all so close together. And two, those are instances where you're prepared for that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the parking is right close. So on a beautiful day when we don't have rain or something, we've got a grass lot that's before you get to the house. You can park there. We have parking attendants that will help people get parked. If for some reason the weather's not being in our favor, we have a gravel lot that's just beyond the pavilion. But the great thing even about that is the drive goes between the house and the pavilion. So if grandma can't walk, pull up. We've got a parking attendant that's right there. Let her off. She can walk on in and literally walk 20 feet to where she needs to be. And then somebody can go park the car.
And that's something too I think about a lot more when I'm doing initial meetings with couples because, my grandparents are older and I am always just so cautious when I'm around them. And,
Right.
when I used to do full service weddings and just watching people struggle and knowing that they wanted so hard to be a part of an event and they didn't want the eyes on them and stuff and just accommodating them because it really, it's about your guest experience. It is just, they're just as important as everyone else. So
Right.
talking about having parking staff, let's talk a little bit about your team that is here on the wedding day. You are so much more than just a venue. You can help the couple do so much here.
We kind of charge ourselves as being a little more full service. We are not a DIY wedding place, for sure. We're kind of a one-stop shop in a way. During the wedding weekend, I'm always here. And I do the day of coordinating. We include that with our package. So you get your day of coordinator, which is myself. So you get 30 years of experience. So there's not a whole lot you can throw at me that I can't figure out for you. We also, with our catering group, we do offer catering on property. So we have our whole catering team and our chef staff that take care of all of the food and the setup for that. We also have a florist on property, so we can offer any of the florals. We grow most of our own flowers here on the farm, and we grow most all of our produce that we use for our catering side. So everything is pretty much right here. So you get catering, you get your coordinating, you get accommodations, you get floral. And because I've been in this business so long, I have lots of go-to vendors that are within a 5-mile radius of us that we can get you in contact with and kind of help with that. The advantage of that is that all of these people have worked here before. And so they know what they're doing. They come on the property. They know exactly where to go. So last minute planning, not a problem. We got you.
You talked about you being here and doing like the day of planning as well. Do you help the couple with their timeline leading up to it and like sending that to all of their vendors?
We do.
Okay.
So I work with the bride, and 30 days before the event, we'll have a timeline. And I'm a little OCD on the timeline part. So it's pretty much hour by hour from the time they get here Friday at 3 until they leave Sunday at noon. We include everything in this timeline. So it's what music you're going to walk out to, what music you're going to walk into the pavilion to, what's the name and how do you say for all of your bridal parties. So if you're having the DJ announce them, they don't screw somebody's name up. How do you want to be announced when you walk in the door? It'll also include, when does the bridal party need to be at the house for pictures? And we work with the photographer on their timeline and hair and makeup on their timeline so that everything works really smooth.
And so you're actually the one that sends them down the aisle when it's time to go down the aisle and everything.
I'm standing right there at the mansion doors. I'm the one that opens the door, and I'll fluff her dress right before she walks down the aisle. It's my favorite part. It's the reason why I love doing what I do. I get to spend a weekend basically with a new family that I've fallen in love with, and we have a great time, and they trust us because we have worked so hard to make sure that their day is planned exactly the way that they want it. And once it's planned, and once they step on the property Friday at 3, I know exactly what they want. And at that point, they can just relax and have fun, and I'll take care of all the rest of it.
And I think it's so fun, like, talking to people and other, like, people that do planning, hearing about the parts that they enjoy the most. The day of was my least favorite part. I loved everything about leading up to it. I loved making the timeline. I still make the timeline for a lot of couples in the studio, and, like, figuring out ceremony start times and stuff, but the day of was not my thing. I had, a photographer come up to me at an event, and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Your face says something's wrong." I was like, "Everything is good." He was like, "Okay, I was just checking." I'm like, "Oh, I gotta work on my face." So I love hearing that, that's your favorite part because that really makes a difference in the couple's experience and how your vendors feel about your wedding day. You want them to be excited. And that was where I knew that that wasn't my strength anymore. It was leading up to it and doing these interviews and like educating people and that kind of thing. And so if you're doing the planning and getting the bride down the aisle, who is taking care of like the catering and making all of that happen?
So our catering team usually are here mid-afternoon, so they usually get here 3 or 4 hours before to get all of the buffets set up, to get the bar set up. We provide you with a bartender, so you don't have to worry about finding that certified bartender. All of our staff are certified, so they're over there doing their thing. Early part of the day, I'm probably over there putting tablecloths on
For
and
sure.
doing centerpieces while they're in here doing hair and makeup. I mean, I'm not here to stand over top of them,
Absolutely.
but I'm always available. I'm within 50 feet if they flip a breaker or they can't figure out how to get the water in the shower to turn on, or, we get lost. Vendors get lost all the time.
All the time.
We are kind of a little bit out, even though we're 5 miles from Walmart. So we're really close to town, but once you get out here, it's like being in another world. But I'm always close. So there's no stress, hopefully, with our brides and with the bridal party. And same thing with the guys. I'll walk to the bunkhouse and make sure that everybody's got their belts and everybody's got their socks, and
They don't know how to put their ties on or they don't know how to tie their bow ties.
yep, or put a boutonniere on. I do this every weekend,
Yep.
so I just say, sit back and enjoy. Trust me, I'll make sure that you get where you need to be.
And you touched a little bit on the bar. Every venue has a different rule, a different procedure for that. You mentioned that you had the star certified bartenders here. So does that mean that the couple brings in their own alcohol and then your team serves it?
They do. So the way that ours works currently is we do not have a liquor license. So we'll work with the family to make sure that they've got the right inventory. So we'll figure out what they want to serve at their bar, and then I'll sit down with them and help them come up with numbers. So we don't want them coming in with 25 cases of beer if there's 50 people. So we'll help them come up with all that. Our team will set up the bar. We provide the ice, the coolers, the glassware, all of that stuff for the bar. The things that we don't allow, we don't do BYOB, so guests can't bring coolers in and all of that. So everything has to be served from a central bar area. That's the only requirement that we have.
With you providing the on-site catering, if a couple has another caterer that they want to bring in, is that an option or are you strictly the in-house caterer here?
We don't require you to use us. We do say to people, at least let us quote it for you so that you've got something to base all the other stuff on. But we don't require that you use us for florals. We don't require that you use us for catering. I don't even require you to use us for day of coordinating. If you have another coordinator that you want to use, I'm happy to let the reins go on that. I'll still be around in case you need something. We don't have like a strict requirement. The only things that we do require is that any of your vendors that you do bring on our property, they have to be licensed and insured. That's really the only thing. We don't allow Aunt Mary to make your cake. Your cake has to come from a bakery or from a certified baker. We don't do potluck. We don't do the family bringing in food. You have to use a caterer, but you don't have to use us per se.
We talked a little bit about how when the couple rents the property for the weekend, they get it Friday through Sunday. Obviously, that's going to be the most popular option. But do you have weekday options? Do you have micro wedding options? That is definitely becoming more popular. And a lot of times it might be a parent's anniversary date that they want to go with. They don't care what day of the week it falls on. Is the property available for rentals other days than Friday through Sunday?
It is. That's obviously our primary rental is the Friday through Sunday, but we do Sunday weddings. So our groups will be gone by noon. We can flip it and do Sunday weddings. We can do weddings during the week. It's not a problem. We're just now kind of venturing into more of the elopement and the micro wedding stuff. With those, we are setting those up just a little bit differently. So with the micro weddings, those are for 50 or less people. With those style of weddings, we do require you to use us for catering and for florals because we do the full package. So with a micro wedding of under 50, if it's at a time when you can also rent the space, you can rent the rooms as well. I mean, we can a la carte that part of it out, but we will provide you with your florals. We'll provide you with dinner. We'll take care of all of your decor. So we're kind of building a little bit different package for the micro weddings to make it a little bit easier for those that are planning a smaller event.
Do you open up the property for a couple to do their engagement photos here?
We do. So with your package, for those that are actually getting married here, with your package, it includes an opportunity to be able to do your engagement photos here on the property. If you're not doing your wedding here, we do open it up for photographers to be able to bring people here to do engagement pictures on property. We also do lots of family portraits. We do lots of the seasonal things. So we've got a sunflower field and we've got the pumpkin field and we've got the zinnias and all of the fresh flowers that we use here, which also make for a great backdrop. We do lots of prom pictures. We do lots of homecoming pictures. And it's just a small fee that we charge the photographer to bring them on. Now, the one thing that we do require is that those sessions do need to be with a photographer. We don't have people just come up and do shots with their iPhone or whatever.
With you only being 45 minutes from the Lexington airport, and you said about an hour and 10 minutes from the Louisville airport,
Yes.
this is a great destination venue. And one of the best things about it being a destination venue is that it still has cell phone service here.
Yes.
I know there are a lot of venues in Kentucky when they're considered destination, you lose the cell phone service. So that is a perk. You talked about having Wi-Fi here as well. Again, going back, I wouldn't even say that's bougie. I would just say that's part of life now. We
Right.
need those things. And being 5 minutes from Walmart, and you've got so many places on property for people to stay, but a lot of times maybe the parents don't want to stay with the bridal party, that type of thing. How far are like hotels from the property? Are there hotels? Are there other Airbnbs close by?
We also have 3 additional Airbnbs in Junction City, which is literally 2 miles from here. But our Stanford address is sometimes a little confusing for people because we are, like I said, we are 5 minutes from Walmart in Danville. We are just across the county line from Boyle to Lincoln County, and are closer to Danville than we are to Stanford, actually. Once you get into Danville, right there where the main road is in Danville, if you turn left, there's hotels there. If you turn right, there's a whole slew, the Comfort Inn, the Holiday Inn Express, the Hampton, they're all right there. They're real close.
And you're about 5 minutes, 7 minutes from a Starbucks, from a Chick-fil-A. So you're not far away from the
Oh,
world.
no. I mean, A lot of times what'll happen on Saturday morning, because, the guys have nothing to do until 2 in the afternoon when they have their hour to get ready, while the girls are all up here for hours and hours and hours doing hair and makeup. Lots of times what we'll do is the guys will get up in the morning and the groom will take all of them to Cracker Barrel, which is
Brilliant.
5 minutes from here. And they'll all go and have breakfast. And maybe they'll do a Starbucks run and bring Starbucks back for all the girls while they're getting their hair and makeup done.
This all sounds great, but let's talk a little bit about pricing.
Okay.
I know that that is different in every scenario. It is different for different months out of the year. I also know that we have couples that are listening that are going to be 2025 versus 2026. And so it is very hard to say the property costs this much money. Can you give me maybe a starting price for a Friday through Sunday rental, just so that a couple knows if it's anywhere close to being in their budget before they schedule a site visit?
Sure. And I'm completely open on pricing. It's not something that I hide from people. If you call and you want a tour, I'll send you our pricing package first. So if there's any question of whether it's in your budget, then you'll know before you even get here. I do not believe in surprising people. I want you to know everything as much as possible going into it. So we are currently, for 2025, we look at seasonal. So we have our higher season, which is May and June and September, October. The rates on those, the base price for those start at $7,500 just for the venue. The average catering for us for a group for about 150 people usually runs somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000, depending on the menu that you choose. For 26, that all is changing just a little bit. So the base price in 26 is going to 12,500. That has a lot to do with the fact that we're adding amenities. We're going to be adding a bunch of stuff for 26 that we don't currently have right now. We have a full decor package that we can include in your package for 26. We included, there's no extra fee for using the decor that we have. There's also accommodations that are going to be added for 26. We're also looking at adding a second pavilion out next to the round pavilion that we have, that will be a 50 by 140 covered area. Because obviously one of the big questions is, what do we do when it rains? We've got this planned for the front lawn. What are we going to do if it rains? Currently, what we do is we go into the round pavilion and people just sit where they're eating, but that's not as fun. So we are adding a larger pavilion that'll be right next to the barn that'll be then available. But then we're adding other additional amenities to the farm. So there'll be hiking trails, and we're looking at adding some recreation stuff. So we're looking at putting the pickleball courts in and doing a couple of other things to make it a lot more fun in 26 as well.
Sounds like you have your hands full.
Well, we do. We bought this place primarily for the wedding business, the house and the barn, and that's what we went in with our eyes open. And then it was like, Sarah, we have 700 acres. What are we going to do with all the rest of it? So what we're trying to create here is more of a resort feel. And with the destination side of it, when you go to a resort, you have to have things to do.
Absolutely.
So whether it's a putting green or it's a pickleball court, or, we're looking at the swimming pool and putting the things in that would make people want to stay for the weekend. Now, obviously, when you're busy with a wedding, some of that stuff is not necessarily priority, but it's there if you want it. And then the other things that we're going to be doing is we are going to work on getting our liquor license for 26. We are getting the house certified as a B&B. So there'll be some other amenities that we'll be adding along the way.
How will the construction of the pavilion affect your brides this year?
It won't. We're not doing it until the fall.
Okay.
So it'll be off season when it's going to be built.
And we touched on the barn that you have on property just a little bit. I think that it is, I don't want to say underutilized. It is not probably the most popular spot on the property, but I think it's actually really cool. And you've done a good job of cleaning it up, and it's still got the horse stalls. I think that It could be super fun, and I think that it's a great spot for rehearsal dinners to line the tables straight down the middle of the horse barn with the chandeliers on top of the market lights. What have you seen couples do with the barn?
So currently, we haven't done a whole lot with
Okay.
it. I mean, it's kind of one of those newer additions that we just added last fall. One of the things that we have 11 barns on this farm.
Oh, wow.
So it's like there's barns everywhere. So we're trying to figure out all of the different things. And that goes back to our want of being able to create really whatever vision that a bride might come to us with. If she wants to do something that's a little more rustic, because there are still those rustic themes out there. We get it. And so this gives you that opportunity to be in that big old black barn. And our barn is big. So it'll seat 300 or 400 people. And it's a lot bigger than it looks from the outside. But yes, it's all concrete down the center. We've got the big chandeliers up there. We've got the lights up there. There's plenty of parking. You can do your ceremony up there. I think it's a sweet spot because the sunset that you can see, it's kind of sits up on top of the hill, even from the house. The sunset up there is just spectacular. But it could be utilized for rehearsal dinner. We've got people looking at it now even for this year to do their weddings up there. Now, the unique thing for us here is that we also supply you with all your tables and chairs for that barn as well. So wherever you decide that you want to do your event, it's not just situated in the white pavilion. That's probably where we do 95% of them. But say you wanted to do your ceremony kind of out in the field. I'm okay with that. You want to put a tent up. This summer, we probably have half of our weddings that are 200 plus people. Now, our white pavilion kind of caps out around 150, 175 to make sure you've got plenty of space for dance floors and stuff like that. But the weddings have become a little bit bigger now. So we've got 200, 250, 300. So our rental company friends are bringing a tent to set up next to the barn, next to the white pavilion. And we'll use the pavilion with the air conditioning and all of that for people to be able to stay cool. We'll put the bar, we'll put the food, we'll put the cake, we'll do cocktail hour maybe in there, and then everybody moves out to the tent. But it doesn't necessarily have to be right here beside the house. If you wanted it to be out in an open field, we got open fields. We got plenty of room.
And I'm guessing that whenever a couple has that many guests, that they're probably gonna have to bring in some tables and chairs of their own if they're doing a tent for 200 people, or, like, how many tables and chairs do you have on property?
We have lots.
Okay.
So even with a package where we do, when they want to bring in a tent, we still supply your tables and chairs
Okay.
for you, regardless of whether you're in the pavilion or whether
Oh, wow.
you're under a tent. We still, as a part of your package, we told you
That is very nice of
we
you.
promised you that we would supply you with with tables and chairs. So we've got plenty for up to 300, and we just invested with a whole nother set of tables and chairs so that we have a whole set for the other barn as well.
Wow.
So we don't typically do more than one wedding a weekend, but if it were a situation where we've got a wedding going on here on Saturday and somebody wanted the barn for Friday for a Friday wedding, we've got plenty of supplies to be able to do both of them and not be kind of scrambling around for tables and chairs.
And then do you also include linens?
So we have linens available.
Okay.
I don't include them just because the laundering is
Absolutely.
expensive.
Yes.
But I do them at a cheaper price, just as long as you're willing to use black or white, because that's all I've got room to store.
And I mean, honestly, I think the white looks great in the pavilion with the gold accents and everything in there. I think the white, it just makes it super polished.
So what we do a lot is we bring the color in with napkins.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a white background. The barn itself is white. The floor is a stamped concrete floor that looks like hardwood, and it's stained to look like hardwood. So having the white fabric on the tables with the linens just makes everything else just kind of pop, I think.
And you also have a couple of farm tables, don't you?
We do have farm tables as well, and we're getting ready to invest in a bunch more of them. So we've got those. I've got high tops. We've got smaller tables for gift tables, cake tables. We have old antique tables that we can use for unity candles or unity stuff at the ceremony. We've got couches if you want to put a sofa and do a little seating area under the trees. I mean, we have lots of stuff to make it kind of unique for you.
And I will say that your social media has been absolutely amazing lately.
Oh, thank
I've seen so many great photos and slideshows and reels and TikToks. It really shows what the property can do and how every couple does something different. And I think every couple that pulls in through the gate and comes up the driveway has a different vision. And I love that you are willing to work with them, and because a lot of venues are not. They're like, your ceremony is going to be here, your cocktail hour is going to be here, and your reception is going to be here. And I love that you're willing to work with them and make it what they want it to be.
Well, I think when someone pulls up to the front drive and they pull up to the house, they automatically have their own view of what they would think. Now, I'm more than happy to walk them around and say, here's what typically happens, but it doesn't have to be typical for you. So, whatever that look happens to be, we just look at the house in Arcadia as being that blank slate. It's just the backdrop, and everything else can be created to be that dream day that you want. And, kind of our charge is we want you to have that dream day, but we're also here to take a lot of the stress off. You design it, we'll put it together.
You mentioned at some point that you would be here on the wedding day, even if there was another planner, like if the breaker flipped. That is huge for me because there are a lot of venues that just give the keys and let the couple in, let the family in, and they're just gone. And when things like that they're going to happen. And you just being on property and being here to make sure that the couple is taken care of is huge. And you cannot put a dollar amount on things like that, in my opinion.
Well, one of the things that is, I think, unique for me is that this is my home. I mean, we look at Arcadia as being the place where we're going to live for the rest of our lives. Now, will we always be doing weddings? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. At some point I'm going to get old and not want to do it anymore, but it's a long way away. But this is my home, and I treat this as my home. And when you come onto my property, you're my guest, and I will roll out the red carpet for you. And just like if you had family come to your house, you're going to make sure that, if they need blankets, you'll pull them out. If they need a pillow, you'll pull it out. If they need a glass of water, you'll show them where the glasses are. So when you come here and decide to do your wedding here, it's like coming to your uncle's house or coming to your big brother's house. And I want you to feel that way. And most all of our brides and grooms, when they leave here, I mean, they're like my cousins, they're like my kids. So we have so much fun over the weekend. And then one of my favorite things about the weekends is Sunday morning, when lots of times it's just mom and dad and the bride and groom, and we've got to go out and pack up some of their stuff and get it in the car. But I get to see them on that Sunday morning, their eyeliners rubbed on the side of their face, and the groom's hair's all wild and stuff, and they're all in their sweatpants. But when we stand in the kitchen and we have that last cup of coffee together, and it's like watching your family leave when they're coming to visit on vacation, and you get to wave at them. But then we get that opportunity to just sit and talk about all the fun things that we did over the weekend. And I say we because I am a little different that way. I am here. I do enjoy it probably more than most.
As far as availability for 2025 weekends, do you still have any availability left?
I do. Probably, with the exception of June and September, I at least have one weekend each month
Okay.
still available. Very oddly for this year, I only have one wedding booked in October. So I have a bunch of dates in October and November still left open. Spring, summer, it's a little more kind of scattered, but October dates are coming. We always fill up for October. It's just very odd this year that we
Everybody
don't
is like that.
all
It's very,
do.
it's very different this
September's
year.
full.
Yeah.
To the point that we're doing Sunday weddings in September, just because everybody wanted to get married in September, and we're doing some Friday weddings too. Yeah, we have dates open,
Okay.
and we're already booking 26 too.
Okay. And if a couple is interested in scheduling a tour to come out and see the property in person, how is the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can email us. You can give me a call. The number that's listed on all of our social media is my cell phone.
Okay.
So I'm easy to get a hold of. Typically, I do tours on Sundays from noon to 5. That way, I make sure that I'm always here on Sunday. All the lights are on. Everything's cleaned up after the last wedding. So from noon to 5, I do by appointment. Usually takes about an hour to do the tour here. But the other part that's kind of good is I also do live here. So if for some reason Sunday doesn't work, I can schedule an evening tour, or I can do during the week. And lots of times, if it's just a last minute thing, say you're touring another venue down the road and just so happen to see and think, oh gosh, well, Arcadia's right there. We assumed it was far away. Arcadia's just down the road. Don't hesitate to call. If I'm here, I love to talk, and I'll show you around.
Jerry, thank you so much for chatting with me today and sharing more about your experience and the history of the property and just how well-rounded your background is. And just you have such a calm demeanor about you. And that is what every single couple needs on the wedding day. And I think Arcadia is such a hidden gem. And that's one of the things I love most about my job is getting to share properties like this with everybody, because you can Google all day long and you can see stuff and you can see pictures, but really getting to know the person behind the venue and the history behind it and the heart that goes into it is really what can win a couple over and make their day great. For more information about Simply Love Studio or to schedule your wedding consultation, go to simplylovestudio.com.